On this episode of the Create Podcast, we sat down with Sottlin Rucker. He's a video game developer. He's a musician. He's an artistic. Had his hands in everything creative. Really, really cool conversation.
Yes, and also married to one of my good friends since middle school, Sherry McGee Rucker, which is how we kind of came in contact with him. And just like super fascinating guy, so much experience. We had so many interesting things to talk about.
We talked about everything from the GameStop stock and
Debacle.
Robinhood to Mike Tyson and Logan Paul and Conor McGregor to video game development and the music industry and esports and just really, really cool conversations. I think we went pretty long, kind of totally lost track of time.
We did. Talked about blended family parenting and just kind of letting your kids find their own way in terms of, you kind of talked about you grew up playing sports and we kind of like went down that path with our kids and then realized that we just need to kind of let them do their own thing. And he kind of talked about that with his kids, a kid with ADHD and a kid who is graduating with a degree in artificial intelligence and just so many fascinating things that we talked about.
Yeah, basically we solved all of the world's problems in an hour and some minutes. So
In some minutes.
hope you enjoyed this episode of the Create Podcast. We sat down with Sottlin Rucker.
This is the Create Podcast.
Pretty much, I'll listen to anything other than country. Really, that's the one area I'm going to. Johnny Cash. I love Johnny Cash. I love the old school stuff.
I love Johnny Cash, Roy Clark.
Yeah,
guys that could really pick banjos.
yeah,
They're just like they just have like a flamenco style, but it's like a country flamenco style.
Yeah.
Or Roy Clark. If you watch the Roy Clark on was it Hee Haw?
mm-hmm.
My man was killing
Yeah.
it, dude. But if you watch, you see the same chops he had as let's say Hendrix,
Mm-hmm.
because they all kind of come from the same roots. If you do the blues, that's where a lot of the roots in the context of it comes from.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, back when I studied the blues. Before then, I studied like spiritual music from the Fields and boogie woogie, and then that's where you see everything kind of exploded. Like the Beatles took boogie woogie, and that's what became rock and roll.
yeah.
There was a guy up north in Oakland. I can't remember his name, but he said he taught Elvis how to stand on his toes, and I'm like. Yeah, right. Sure, you did. And he's like, no, dude, I got the pictures. And he showed me the pictures of him and Elvis. Like,
Really?
Wow.
I was like, look at this. Yeah, but it's so much stuff. I mean, but I never. He was a country singer. He's a black guy singing country. He wanted me to do promotion for him over on the jazz station, and I'm like, well, they're not going to do a crossover thing, I don't think. But because of the eclecticism of what you're doing. And where you came from, I think they'll listen to it, which they did. He's a pretty interesting guy. I hope he's still around.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because, like, back then they would try and come up with their own thing. Like, he had the first suit with the first short sleeve suit. So
funny.
the coat was like short sleeve.
Yeah.
Like,
You're like, that's a look.
yeah, it was. It was. So it was pretty funny.
You play bass? You said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's your main instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Do you play in a band now still, or
No,
No.
Now I raise kids.
there's kids? Yeah,
and
You're like,
make
I've got a
apps.
blended
Yeah.
family. That's enough.
That's way enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up a guitar till I was 19. So,
Mm.
and at that time I was married shortly after that and had kids. So I never had the time to put into it. My younger brothers, they were like in 6th, 7th grade at the time. So they saw me get a guitar and they got into it. So they actually got into bands and they went on tour and they really got into it. But I always wished I would have got into it sooner.
It was like in my neighborhood in Detroit, the first black person I ever seen drive a Mercedes was the manager for the Clark sisters.
Really?
I was like, wow, if he has one, I got to get one.
Yeah.
And that music was the only way I knew to get it. So it was like, I started playing bass because back then everybody was, I remember we were trying to impress the girls, so if
Yeah.
you couldn't play football, then you tried to sing in a band. So I just sung in a band, and that's kind of where it came from.
That's amazing.
Huh.
But
Pull that in a little bit closer. You don't
okay,
mind, so.
yeah.
You
So
can,
you started
move
that
it back and forth.
as a teenager?
My mom gave me a drum set when I was 5 years old. And
Oh, wow.
I bet
Wow.
she regretted that.
I have 2 brothers that are drummers, so I can say yes, she did.
So it went from drums to piano because she gave me an organ, and then it was from there to bass clarinet because my uncle played sax, and then from bass clarinet I just played the bass, and that's kind of what stuck.
Wow. But I mean, that's a wide variety of instruments. That's cool.
Yeah,
to
it's
know how
cool
to do
now because like my kids, they play instruments now, and I
Yeah.
can kind of play with them. They think I'm kind of really kooky when I just break out and do stuff. So, but I like to hear and feel their natural talent and creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my daughter, she just draws she draws like 5 or 6 pictures a day.
Wow.
Just draws. And I like that because she's flowing with her creativity.
Yeah.
But what I notice is like at the age of 2 or 3, they can all keep notes or hold notes. They can hear them and then they can repeat them back. And I'm like, okay, if they can do that, I know they can sing.
Yeah.
So I just look for all the little creative things and try to, encourage them in all the creative stuff they do. Like the one that draws, she does Roblox for days.
Yes.
Roblox
Yeah.
for days, designing Roblox.
Yeah.
And she's
Roblox is cool. Like, they're getting a lot of skills through Roblox and Minecraft,
I'm getting ready to invest in Roblox.
as you should.
They just picked up another company that does more realistic polygons, and they also updated their back end for like quantum drives now, so
Yeah.
they can repeat the. It's the refresh rate that makes it so big. So
Right.
now that they've got the higher res people on Roblox, you'll probably start to see it come
Yeah.
up pretty quickly because that's where everything is now.
Yeah.
Whole esports, that's just insane. I'm seeing like I have another son. He's graduating this year from U of M
Yeah.
in artificial intelligence,
Wow. That's
and
cool.
he
Wow.
sponsored.
That's a good place to be right now.
Boom! I was like, dude, bingo. But he's been writing Java since high school.
Really?
Wow.
He just runs circles around me. He runs circles around me.
So you have 4 older kids, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What are their ages?
Jordan is 26. Noah is 20.
It's like a pop quiz.
2. Yeah, and Mana's 18, and then I have another one here that's 18. That's Isaiah.
Yep.
Then we have 16, Alexa. Then we have 2 twins that are 8, and then I have a little one that's 5.
Yes. Your little one cracks me up all the time.
Yeah, she's the boss.
Yeah.
She runs things.
So we've known your wife forever. Like, I was on drill team at University Heights Middle School with Sherry McGee. Yeah,
Way
and
back
went
then.
through high school together, and we love that Mama D, and yeah,
Is that
just
right?
love them.
So what kind of person was she when she was in high school? I got this.
I think she's very similar to who she is now.
Really?
Yeah, she's always been awesome. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even in middle school, she, just telling people what to do and getting it done, and I love her.
Yep,
She's great.
that's the way the 5-year-old is.
I can see that. I know whenever she posts stories about her, I'm like, oh, I can see she's kind of like you, like Sherry.
It's just funny how your children each get a part of you,
Yeah,
and you can kind of see it. So it's like you can't be mad at them
That's true.
because you're mad at the part that's you.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I know. I was talking to my mom the other day, and I was like, every time I go up into Tristan's room, it's like gathering all my treasures, like my best scissors and my tape, and getting it all out of, I have to go and like get it all out of Tristan's room. And she's like, well, that sounds kind of familiar, like what I had to do when you were. I'm like, yeah, that's why he drives me a little crazy. We're too much alike.
Well, as long as I keep them away from fire, I'll be okay.
Yeah, that's always the goal, right? I I have friends
Matches
who,
and scissors.
Yeah, like back in the day, they had those readily available. You
Yeah.
know? They don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Keep them away.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Detroit.
Yeah, I grew up in Detroit.
Did you? And then how long have you been out here?
I came out to Silicon Valley around the dot-com boom,
Okay.
98, 99. I did some work for IBM. I did some work for Mattel up there. I worked for the company I worked for actually spun off a lot of stuff for Sequoia Capital. If you look at Sequoia Capital, those guys were the monster financiers
Yep.
of the top 25 companies even today.
Yeah.
And I worked with Mark Kwame, who was one of the vice presidents at Sequoia. So we just took digital products, digital innovations, digital companies, companies that weren't digital, and brought them into the digital age. I was the first person to launch Kmart.com.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was crazy. We launched the first interactive Barbie.com.
Wow.
So did a lot of things first just because they were there.
Yeah.
But I was up there for a while, and then the bubble bursted or whatever. Had bad first marriage, so came down here in 2005 and started doing digital stuff for entertainment companies. And I ended up working with a company, Deutsch, that my client was Sony PlayStation.
Yeah.
So since I was involved in animation, and I used to do a lot of programming in Flash and Action Script and Director, Flash became the predominant thing of choice for animation and graphics back in the day. So I did a lot of stuff with Flash. Ended up doing some stuff with Sony PlayStation. I did, what did we do? I won 7 Guinness World Records for Little Big Planet. It was like longest game played, most game titles played.
That's cool.
That's
whatever.
amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was pretty cool. So we did that at the Sony headquarters, I think in like 2009
Yeah.
for Sony. And then in 2012, they let me do Shoot My Truck with Twisted Metal. Has this big truck with a clown called Sweet Tooth.
Mhm.
They let me put it on a turntable, and then we had AK-47 shoot the thing and put it in Vegas.
Wow.
But you could actually shoot the truck from Facebook interface.
Wow.
So they allowed me to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
Yeah, and then more recently I did a VR piece for Boost Mobile.
Oh, cool.
So I kind of allow myself to do creative stuff with technology stuff, and then now I'm into doing the gaming.
Yeah.
And I think gaming it's not the final plateau, but it's going to be a whole different thing, I think, in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're up on all of the GameStop craziness that happened.
That was insane. That was just insane.
Well, it's interesting. It started because it sounds like GameStop is having like a major overhaul, but it sounds like they're kind of going the direction of like being like a VR lounge and like setting up. I mean, it kind of sounds like a 1999 version LAN party where you're having people like come in and play on console, do tournaments on console, and so it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if, as we come out of the pandemic, if people are craving that like in-person game experience, or if they're wanting to just do it. What's your gut
If that's
on which
their
that will go?
business model, no, they're going to get it. They're going to make money at that. Number one, if you look at what are these game rooms are now popping up.
Yeah.
Those are like an underground sensation kind of thing to do.
Yeah.
Wouldn't see it as an investment piece, but yeah, those are up and coming pieces for entertainment. And now you will see people coming into stations to do the gaming. You'll see teams show up, just like you have teams at the basketball court showing up.
Yeah.
You're going to have esports teams showing up.
Yeah.
My son, when I told you about that's at Michigan,
Yeah.
they did a tournament for charity. They did an esports tournament for charity at the University of Michigan. And I was like, okay, well, all right. what's
Yeah,
that
what does
gonna
that
be
look like?
about?
Yeah.
So everybody plays this game, and they incentivize each other. Hey, that was a good score. I'm giving you here this. I'm giving you here that. And then people donate based on how long they can play.
Yeah.
Well, I think he can pay for this long. I think he'll survive
Yeah.
up till this level, right? They raised $270,000
Oh my gosh.
that weekend.
Good for them.
270.
That's amazing.
I'm like, I
What's
need
what's his
$270,000
go-to game?
this weekend.
Yeah.
What's that? Champions.
Yeah.
I can't remember it because they've got League of Legends.
Oh, yeah,
League
yeah,
of
yeah.
Legends. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's an RPG game.
Yep.
Platform streaming. Twitch is hot
Yep.
right now. Steam is hot right
Yep.
now. And because of the pandemic, you've seen exponential numbers in the whole gaming platform.
Huge.
Big
Yeah.
time.
Mobile gaming, yeah, because that's the only way we can enjoy ourselves right now.
Yeah.
And like I have a fraternity brother. He used to be he still is a high school football recruiter,
Yeah.
sports recruiter,
Yeah.
but now he's become an esports recruiter.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah,
Really?
for teams.
It makes sense.
It's crazy, dude.
That is
Wow.
crazy.
I remember when I was working in Irvine. I don't know if you know who Ninja is. He's like
Antonio's.
one of my buds is like the top 5 Tekken player, Filthy Rich,
Yeah.
and like every month, dude, I used to see this truck come with McLarens,
Wow.
Bugattis,
Wow.
Veyrons. I was like,
What's happening here?
yeah, and it was like, well, where are these cars coming from? Oh yeah, well they just donate them to us. You know, we just keep them for a month. We drive them.
Oh my
We drive
gosh.
them in the games if we like them. I'm like, oh my god, I'm in the wrong line of
I was
business
just going to
here.
say, I'm doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I was like, can I take a picture in the Veyron? Yeah, sure, dude. But yeah, that's when it became apparent to me that the numbers are in gaming right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're doing 20, 30, 40,000 people an hour at $9 an hour every day.
Right.
So those are exponential numbers. And then when you've got tournaments, they get bigger. And like now I'm working on a project that is going to be similar to what Travis Scott did with Fortnite.
Yeah.
That was huge. That
Yeah.
was a big crossover
Everything he touches.
event. Yeah.
I know our kids were like obsessed with pulling up to McDonald's and playing the latest Travis Scott song to order their Travis Scott meal. Did you see that? That he had like a special meal at McDonald's.
And it's a whole AR thing. Yeah.
It's like a whole
So
thing.
that's where they are now. So it's going to be a different world.
Yeah.
It's going to be a different
Well, and
world.
it's crazy to think like it wasn't that long ago when we were kids and parents looking at video games and their kids playing video games is a complete, not just a waste of time, but it's going to ruin them or for this reason or that, to be at a place now where it's just completely, you can look at it the way I think historically parents have looked at, well, I'm going to get my kid into sports and this is going to help them either get into school or help them develop a career. Now, video games there seems to be a better path down that road than even traditional sports, wouldn't you say?
It is. I'm torn right there.
Yeah.
I am really torn, just because of my children now, and just to see. I don't want to say the mutation that
Yeah.
they do. Like for instance, my oldest one. Like I also produce music. I did like 2 albums or whatever.
Yeah.
And he is a very good music producer. Very good music producer. Matter of fact, he got a music scholarship to Alabama A&M.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
But he's doing trap music now. I'm like, oh God. What is that about?
Music in
What?
quotes after the word trap.
What? Yeah, I can't. It's like, dude, I can celebrate the quality and the level
Right.
of level that you do
Of
it to,
professionalism.
right? But other than
Yeah.
that, I really can't give you anything.
Oh,
The
that's
one
so
that's
funny.
an AI, he builds computers. he knows the stuff back and forth.
Yeah.
But he's not socially adept.
Yeah.
He's like, well, where am I going to get a job? Where couldn't you get a job due to just say I
Right.
do artificial intelligence and
Right.
they will come screaming for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other one, like my 8-year-old, he is obsessed with the whole game. I bought him some VR goggles
Yeah.
for Christmas.
Yeah.
And he loves them to the point where if I take him off of him, he starts crying.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with my life?
Right.
And I'm like, wow. So
Right.
it's hard to give him that balance to bring him in and
Yeah.
out of reality. And then, like, yeah, to your point, I'm trying to tell my daughter, well, you don't want to spend a whole lot of time in Roblox, but yet and still on the flip of it, I know that if she goes to Roblox designer programming school,
Right.
she'll be making a hell of a lot of money before she gets out of school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you just have to, I think the whole paradigm of school and education is blurring.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's, I don't know if education is prepared for it,
Yeah.
but just the whole COVID thing, the fact that we're distance learning now,
Yeah.
proved a lot of things.
Yep.
That either kids will or won't. You don't need a university in terms of bricks and mortar to still educate people. You can do it at a distance.
Yeah.
And the ones who are going to achieve are going to achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones who are going to fall off just aren't.
Well, and I think it showed too. We're a blended family of 6 kids. Our oldest is 21 and our youngest is 10. So I feel like we've raised some kids in one world and then the world is like shifted and this 10-year-old, I feel like we're raising, it's a totally different game than like when our older kids were that age. But I think that one really interesting thing with distance learning is just seeing different things work for different kids, like our 10-year-old is totally thriving with distance learning. He loves it.
It's the best
It's
thing
working.
for him.
Yeah, it's working great for him.
Mm-hmm.
Not so with all our kids. but
Not
with
so
him.
much with all of our kids. Yeah, where we have our extroverts, like it's not such a great fit for them. But it's been an interest. I think it's given us a lot of tools that we hadn't really accessed in education. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's because like Onyx, he has ADD.
Yeah.
So he has really hard time learning in class, just being focused in class.
Yeah.
And, when they tested him, and I know he knows the material, the guy can read, I make him read the same books that I read.
Right.
So I know he can read high school level books, and he can.
Right.
But you can't get that guy to sit still long enough to do it, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I don't understand this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I woke up one morning and he's sitting there writing. What are you writing, Onyx? I'm writing the server path to get into these servers.
Yeah. We have one like that
server
too.
paths,
Yeah.
dude?
Yeah. Yeah.
The passcodes in this server, that server, that place. I can't even do that, and I've been doing tech for years.
Yeah.
So they have a whole different skill set.
Yeah.
And
They're playing a different game.
yeah, and we have to be cognizant of it. So I let him go. I was like, okay, if that's what you're doing, just make sure you do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead and do that. I don't know where you're going, but I'm sure that as long as you're not talking to the wrong people who are inappropriate, as long as you're not going in the wrong game spaces.
Right.
And I try and check for those things.
Right.
That's about all you can really do. Just let them go at that point. you know?
Well, it's interesting because like I grew up playing sports. I wasn't really into video games that much. Like we had to go outside and really just grew up in a different world than exists now. But 4 years old, I was on a soccer team, travel soccer. It's like I was always outside, always playing sports. And so when I first had kids, I just automatically thought, okay, all my kids are going to play sports, and that's where they're going to learn all these different life skills and social skills that they need. And not so much consciously, but subconsciously, I really thought that's the answer. That's how you do it. So they all need to fall in line
This is the
and
model.
play sports. So the option I gave them kind of on a subconscious level was, okay, let's find your sport. Not really thinking, well, some of them aren't going to want to play sports.
Right.
But me thinking at the time, just as a young adult and parent and father, that, well, this is how you do it. And then now, like 20 years later, looking back and realizing over the years, we discovered that they're all very different, and they can find those in different places where we have 2, 3 that their world is in the computer, and he builds his own computers and he teaches himself to write code, and he's just very self-taught. And myself probably 20 years ago would thought, well, he's not going to have the tools he needs,
we're failing
as a
this
human being,
kid.
we're failing him. But now to see him as a 20-year-old and see him in social situations where he's just fine, and he's very intelligent, and he has a lot more information than I have in most areas, it's been really eye-opening to me. It was a process over the years, but just realizing that they're all different. At some point, for me, I think you were already there sooner than I was, but for me, discovering my job as a parent was more so to help them discover what their thing was than for me to
just
find it for them and
facilitate it.
facilitate it. And so for a lot of them, it was just, all right, let's try this. Nope. All right, let's try this. But they're all very different.
Yeah.
That particular kid, I remember like his last season of soccer that he played, he was like 11, spent the majority of the season laying on the grass.
Wow.
Just wasn't going to do, like.
Yeah, he's
Just wasn't.
finally.
And we were like, okay, so, well, and then his brother that's just older is only 15 months older, and he's like, soccer. So we were like,
Sports is
so
life.
we need to adjust. You
Yeah,
need to figure out a different plan with
what
this
it is.
kid.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Because I think it was, someone told me that actually children are small gods that work on you.
Yeah.
And yeah, they do. They really do. Because
Yep.
they made me see that my way isn't the only way.
Yep.
And yeah, just especially with the one that had this ADHD.
Yeah.
It was really hard for me to pull back.
Yeah.
Because I came from a house of disciplinarians.
Yep.
And being from Detroit, I came from a house of a lot of dysfunction. So I learned that you can't scare people into doing things. That's just not the way it's done anymore.
Right.
So it was a whole alternative learning for me to learn how to relate to folks or my kids without doing that. Because I remember stuff my mom used to tell me and say to me, and it used to scare the snot out of me. But when I see them and I see the same thing and I see them cringe, and
Right.
it's like,
Right.
I don't want.
It's a different
to have
world.
that for
Yeah.
me.
It's a different, I think you can very much relate to that you
Yeah.
kind of like bridged the gap between like children are to be seen and not heard kind of childhood to like charting a different course with our kids.
Yeah, I'm like fourth generation of just very old school. Like she said, if you're a child, you're to be seen and not heard, and very just, this is your life. It's going to be prepared for you, and walk into it. And I remember I was probably 11 or 12, and like I specifically remember one day just some of those things in the way I was parented, like as even 11, 12-year-old, like, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good, right? I don't, and not necessarily being disciplined, but just that kind of structure and not feeling the freedom to figure out who I am, and I guess just not having that freedom to do that. And I remember even at that young age, and just sitting there and telling myself, I'm not going to do that. Like, and I started making a mental list, like through my teenage years, of when I'm a dad, I'm going to do that. Some of those things changes. Some of those things I got older and realized, like, well, that was actually the best thing for me, and but I think the biggest takeaway was just giving them that freedom to discover, to make mistakes, and to figure out what it is. Because I think it's a different world now, but especially when we were growing up, so many kids, you didn't have that freedom to be creative or to figure out what your thing is. I think you had more of a.
Yeah, I was raised by two creatives, so
Yeah.
there was much more latitude in my house, but we've definitely like come together with our two different parenting styles and tried to figure out what works for our crazies.
Now that most of them are getting ready to leave, we finally figured it out. Most of that.
Towards the end.
Yeah. It's like now that we're almost done, we really got this down. So
I love how you say we're almost done when we have a 10-year-old.
well, in terms of numbers,
But yeah, relatively.
you have 6. There's only 1 left. That means you're almost done.
True.
That's right. Got them on, getting them out the nest.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, for me, it was, I don't want to, it was imperative that I broke out of where I was. It was, our creativity was the only escape for me. I got a scholarship to the Columbus College of Art and Design.
Oh, that's cool.
in industrial design and illustration. But it was like, I had to get out of Detroit. So,
That was your ticket. Creativity was your ticket out.
yeah, it was the way, because the thing, I grew up, like my school, I went to school at a school called Cass Tech, which is one of the top schools in Detroit. But you either get there by talent or money.
Yeah.
And I did not have money. So I knew I was there, with my talent. And, you got all these other kids walking around with, Louis Vuitton stuff, this,
Right.
and Calvin Klein that, and woo, I got these kind of shoes. Well, me being creative, I used to design my own clothes. I used to make my own T-shirts, and
That's
they
cool.
were like, "Oh wow, those are cool T-shirts."
Yeah.
I said, "Yep," and I didn't have to buy it.
Yeah. And it didn't cost $500.
Yeah, so that kind of became my thing.
That's cool.
Is how do you make something out of nothing? And being an artist, the funny thing about being creative and being artist is it allows you to cut across a lot of things.
Yeah.
You can talk to different people at different echelons, because when you approach art and creativity, then it becomes very subjective. And then they can't say it costs this, or like a Basquiat. Those are $1 million paintings, but that's only if it's subjective to you.
Right.
I know guys that can paint like that, so it's not worth that much to me.
Right.
But if I look at some of the other folks that I do like I like fashion guys like Valentino, Antonio Lopez with watercolors was like awesome with it.
Yeah.
Or Nagel. Nagel was the classic illustrator for Playboy. Those were stylistic, and then say, okay, well that has value to me, and then we don't play this whole who's got money thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of evened the playing field, and that's kind of where I stayed. Even now that I'm doing the whole video game thing, what came out? I think it was Afro Punk came out in November. Cyberpunk came out in November. It had this whole big expectation. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars. Fell on its face. Had to give the money back. And I'm like,
wow.
yeah, but I came up with this little game of basically I'm a DJ. Friends of mine in Detroit are DJs, so I came up with this superhero DJ thing.
That's cool.
So we have these superhero DJs. They're fighting in this whole Tekken mode. One of the characters is Dr. COVID. So we've got Detroit people fighting Dr. COVID. And the proceeds go to the guys who, like my DJ friends who aren't at work now.
Right.
They can't go overseas because of the whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
And then they really haven't been paying their taxes over here because they've been playing overseas so much. But now they're over here broke.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, well, what can I do to help those guys out? So they gave me some tracks for the background music, and I made characters that look like them. Like one of them is a guy named Amp Fiddler. Amp is one of the keyboard players for George Clinton.
Oh wow.
Gabe Gonzalez, he's one of the drummers for George Clinton. He'll be in the next game. A guy named Juan Atkins, he's one of the godfathers of techno. Hangs out with those guys, Kraftwerk,
Yeah.
and all those guys. So
Yep.
he's in the game. So I'm getting these guys from different genres, but they're from Detroit, and I can say, okay, these guys are from Detroit. Give me, $5.99. I can help these guys eat because they don't have medical plans.
Right.
And I've watched too many of my friends go, and we have to scramble to get money to bury them.
Hmm.
And it shouldn't be that way that I've got people all around the world that dance to their music,
Yeah.
but I can't bury this guy.
Yeah.
Who is it? Carl Carlton, the guy that did Bad Mama Jamma. She's a bad
Yeah.
Mama Jamma.
Yep.
He ain't on tour right now. You know, he's struggling.
Yeah.
And that guy, they play that song somewhere
Right.
all over the world at some
Right.
point.
Every day.
Right.
Yeah, so
Somebody's playing it right now.
exactly. So part of my game is that I give all of my artists who are in the game Bitcoin accounts, so that they can get Bitcoins.
Yeah.
And people who trade their people who trade their music within the game. Oh, hey, I got this track. You want to trade this game? Okay, they trade tracks so that they can listen to each other's music. But as they trade the tracks, the musicians also get paid in Bitcoins, whether it's 1 or 2 Bitcoins.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the year, those microtransactions add up.
Yeah.
And that's the same money that they would not have gotten, because nowadays people
Right.
don't download and pay for
Right.
music.
Yeah.
So there's some way you have to monetize it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways that I see that we can monetize it. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
hoping that
brilliant.
it'll pick up.
Yeah. Where do you see music monetization going next?
Games.
Games.
Games,
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the only way you have to lock it down. It has to be encrypted.
Right.
And it has to be encrypted with your signature from you to you. And that's the only real... Because the music industry inherently does not want that to happen.
Right.
Because of, you know, the basis of the music industry.
Yeah.
So they don't pay their artists. This is a revolutionary way for artists to get paid direct one-on-one and not have the music industry as a mental aggregator.
Yeah.
That's the only way that they can truly get paid as artists. You have to do that with their music. They have to do that with their content, whether
Yeah.
it's videos or what have you. That's the only way we can truly monetize our content, because that's what we're talking about now. You know, I've got guys. Who is that? Pharrell. That song "Happy."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who wasn't singing that song?
Right.
Everybody was.
And what
yeah.
did he get? 20 grand out of it? Maybe.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
Well, it seems like there's the potential for the music industry to finally benefit the musicians instead of just the industry, which has been the case
yeah,
always.
Yeah, that is totally correct. There still will be an industry, and they will try to, as long as they own distribution.
Right.
That is the key. But again, if you are a smart artist, you can provide your own or make your own distribution channel, and the internet is the great equalizer that
Right.
provides that.
SoundCloud and yeah.
Yeah, because if, like, I've got a friend who is in GTA. He's a DJ in GTA.
Yeah.
Moody Man.
It's funny.
If you go in there, you'll see Moody Man. He's DJing or whatever.
Yeah.
He'll do a set in GTA, and people are like, "Oh, wow, he's in there." I was like, "Okay, yeah, he's in GTA, but he's only getting like maybe 1/16 of anything that's being played."
Yeah.
Whereas my game, I'm giving these guys $1 every time someone downloads it.
Yeah.
Period. If I get 100,000 downloads, they get $100,000, not 1/16 of whatever.
Well, because they've created the music that's in the game specifically for the game, right? So there's no, because probably the stuff that's in GTA, a lot of the royalties still going back through where it was originally distributed.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where it goes. So
Interesting.
yeah, so they've got different models in terms of music and content now that they're, trying to monetize. Some of it's working, some of it isn't, but I think that if artists really go the way of understanding microcurrencies and taking advantage of that, then they'll come out ahead in the long run, because it's still what people don't know.
Right.
And it's been proven with, GameStop. I'm like, where the hell did that come from?
Right.
Yeah.
They were on their way down.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that what happened with GameStop and Robinhood, that's going to press the fast forward button on the advancement of cryptocurrency, and that I think it is. I think It just got pushed a
Has
little
to.
bit further down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to, because people now realize, wow, this can be manipulated.
Big time. Right in front of
Hugely.
our face.
Yeah,
Hugely.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that.
And is in a constant state of being manipulated. Like, not that it can be, that it is.
Yeah,
all
and
the
so
time.
it's like, why am I investing in something that I already know?
Right.
It's
Is a rigged game.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
like Robinhood takes GameStop up yesterday, and then they bring it back this morning. And from my understanding, they limit it to buying 5 shares this morning, and then halfway through the day, they realized they were still effed, and so they limited it to 1. They brought it down to 1, where you can only buy 1. And they wouldn't let you split the share either, which before you were able to split it, so you had to buy a full share. But open up this morning, you can only buy 5, and then midway, like, oh, actually, no, you can only buy 1. So it's just happening right in front of our eyes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to, was it Steve-O that we were watching the other day that he was talking about? He like did a special on where was his first special on?
Oh, Steve-O?
Yeah.
His comedy special?
It was like on HBO or something, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have it made. I'm having a special on HBO."
It was Showtime, I think.
Oh, Showtime, and he was like, "But I barely saw anything from it." And so then the next one he did,
and he didn't get a real bump for it. He didn't, So his next special, he did it himself, 100% did himself,
self-funded.
and he did all the promotion. One of the last things he did to promote it was he bought a billboard down in Hollywood, and he duct taped himself on the actual billboard. And he bought the billboard, so it was all legal. Where he'd done stuff like that in the past, where he went up on someone else's billboard, but he pays for the billboard. And when he presented the specs to the company, he had a picture of him duct taped,
right
but it was a
there.
picture of him, right? It wasn't actually him. So
It wasn't his actual
they
body.
thought it was going to be a picture of him duct taped on the billboard. So it was approved. They signed off on it. And then he duct tapes himself up there and stays up there all day. And it just says, it's called, not Gnarly, what's it called? Anyway, he had the name of the special and in his website. It's all was there. Go to
It was like $9.95 on his website or something.
Yeah. So then he
And he
sold it
killed
himself, and he's already
killed
made
it.
his money back.
Killed it.
And he donated like 50 grand because the fire department had to come get him down.
Wow.
And so he donated like 50 grand to the LA fire department since they had to come out, paid for the billboard. I think he was like when he was completely done, he was in like 700 grand. But now everything that he makes is 100% his.
It's all profit.
That's
where
crazy.
a few years ago, nobody was doing anything like that. It was either Showtime or HBO or The Tonight Show or whatever that outlet was. It's like, well, I just have to sit in line and hopefully cross my fingers. But
Yeah, now with the proliferation of the whole streaming platforms,
yeah,
because I made a couple of deals for some folks on Tubi. Like, yeah, you got this? Okay, well, take it over there. And one of the people that I work with is Omar Gooding, Cuba Gooding's little brother.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So he makes these like B-rated movies. Hope you don't hear me say that. But anyway, but they're like,
I don't think he watches that.
they're hood based. They're just hood based, hood comedy, hood this.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice if he got some quality actors, but they're okay.
Yeah, they're getting it done.
But the thing is, there's this whole thing online for what do you call it? Gangster content. Gangster, like the whole gangster rap culture.
Yeah.
There's these Filipinos and Africans are just eating this stuff up. I'm like,
yeah.
dude, look where your numbers are coming from. The
Yeah.
Philippines.
Wow.
They love this gangster content.
And comedy or serious or both?
Yeah, both. We
yeah.
got some Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
We got some Suge Knight, but we also got some comedy stuff there too. They had comedy at one of the clubs that I would film every Thursday night. We'd edit it and then have it out Saturday. They were looking at it over in Korea. I was like, wow, we got this whole gangster thing going over in Korea.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So you don't just put your content out there. You don't know people have an audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like for me. I didn't think I could do the game. I didn't think people were saying, well, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know this, that, and the other. I got guys that work for Blizzard. Well, dude, you got to have this and put this money into research. I'm like, nah, if I feel it, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And not that it's been a huge success, but people have been behind it. You know,
Yeah.
like the music culture. Been getting calls from DJs from all over the world. Like this one guy,
That's really
Asula
cool.
Day, called from Brazil. I love Asula Day. He's a Yoruba DJ.
Yeah.
All he does is Yoruba beats, these whole Afro beats. So, dude, can I be in the game? Wow, that would be so dope. Then
Yeah.
I could sell the people over, and so it just created this whole new thing. But you have to be willing to cross-pollinate. I think that's what
Yeah.
it is these days. Is if you can find good cross-pollination.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Like who is it? The guy that got knocked out during the Tyson fight.
Yeah.
Was it what was his name?
I watched the fight and I'm totally spacing his name.
Robinson. The Nate. Nate
Yeah.
Robinson.
Yeah.
Nate Robinson, NBA, and then the other guy was he was totally viral on YouTube.
Yep.
But that was the best. I mean, I'm sorry, that was the best fight of the night. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
he got knocked
And
out.
it brought so many
was it-
people to fighting that would have never
Yeah.
Exactly.
watched a fight.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Was
no,
it Jake
Paul.
Paul?
Yeah.
Jake
Paul
Paul.
Logan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
Jake
he's
Paul.
gonna do Mayweather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People, it's a fight. Well, okay. Well,
Have
honestly,
they set a date for that?
it's in March.
It's in March, yeah.
But, people, like, I'm a boxer. I came from Kronk boxing with Tommy Hearns and all those guys. So, I mean, I have a tradition for the boxing,
Yeah.
but I also realize it's entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, if you want to get in there and you guys can make $30 million for
Right.
that,
More power to you.
go for it.
Mayweather's gonna destroy him if he
Yes.
That Logan Paul had Mike Tyson on his podcast. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
Logan Paul, the one's gonna fight him, had Mike Tyson on his podcast.
How was that?
It was good. Mike
Wow.
Tyson put like a giant handful of mushrooms in his mouth during the podcast.
Wow. I didn't know Mike had a podcast.
No, it was Logan
He
Paul's
was on
podcast.
Oh,
Logan
okay.
Paul's
Yeah,
podcast.
he was on Logan Paul's podcast.
Logan's is
And they-
so funny. dude.
Impulsive, is that what it's called? Yeah. And they asked him like, "Hey, do you think he has a chance?" And Mike was basically like, "No."
No.
And then I think his one friend asked him, he's like, "Do you think he at least can get a few punches in?" He's like,
No.
"Only if he lets you."
I mean, that guy is like
He doesn't get hit.
lightning
Yeah.
fast. People don't understand there are levels to boxing.
Yeah.
Like I'm in they call it the Masters, and it's like guys who box over 45. So I'm in the Masters.
Was you still box?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
wow.
So you box, but you look at your competition. Like I would box the guys in San Diego, and then if I'm good here at the fire gym, then I go down to Vegas, and then if I'm good in Vegas, then I go to LA.
Huh.
Or because they have levels of competition.
Yeah.
But you don't get in there. You don't, like they said, you don't play boxing.
No.
You don't play
Right.
boxing.
Right.
I think when that other guy was in with McGregor,
Yeah.
he figured it out.
Yeah.
And even McGregor's last fight, the
Yeah.
guy had a better reach on him.
He did.
And he came with that left. He's a good striker. He's a good fighter, but he's not a good boxer.
No.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to. But I like the whole styles. I like the mix the styles. I would love to see Mike. I would love to see Mike try and do an MMA.
Yeah.
I don't. That wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And he'd kill anybody that came from MMA into boxing.
Yeah.
But I think that cross-pollination of things right now is the way to go. You know?
It's
Yeah,
the biggest
I
thing
agree.
you can do. I mean, thinking about who would have thought like just a couple years ago, Mike Tyson being on Logan Paul's podcast. I mean, just a few years ago, Logan Paul was just a YouTuber
Well, he
that
started
a bunch
on,
of 15-year-olds knew who he was.
Yeah, they started
And-
on Vine. Every time I see Logan Paul, I'm like,
Yeah, that's where he
why?
started.
I'm like, our
He was a
kids were like
teenager on
watching
Vine.
Jake and Logan on Vine, like when they were 12 and when our kids were 12 and 13. It was crazy. And now I'm like, who's this man who has a podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
It's
Ninja.
crazy.
Ninja. I mean.
Yeah.
That guy's getting like $10,000 a minute
It's
somewhere.
insane.
Yeah, just playing a game, dude.
It's insane.
And it's like, where did this guy come from? Or
Yeah.
Ryan, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Oh, the little kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he still around?
Is
Yeah.
he around?
He-
He's
Yeah.
in
what was-
retail stores this year.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Good
He
for
was
him.
in Kmart this year. Like,
He was in McDonald's a couple years ago.
Oh,
like
yeah,
a
he
year.
had a Happy
Yeah,
Meal.
He had a Happy Meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I
Good
like
for him.
Yeah, I like to see the new brand. Even with the cartoons though, like I'm watching Gumball.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the kids, watching the humor.
Yeah.
But I say, I used to watch Bugs Bunny. I used to watch the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
I'm still alive. So thank God. Thank God.
Yeah.
So I mean, things change, but culture still remains the same.
Yeah.
So and I like that. So like I said, I watch the kids. I try to be as hands off as I can.
Yeah.
But you just have to keep your eye on the future. I mean, that's the end of it. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
Try and understand it before they do.
Yeah.
How long has your game been out?
Brought it out on Christmas.
On
Brought it the
Christmas?
week of Christmas.
It's on the App Store and Google Play?
It's on the App Store and Google Play. I also have another game called Dispensary Dash. That's also on Google Store. It's where you can be a bud tender. And if you win 10 levels being a bud tender, then there's a special edition called the Presidential Dispensary Dash, where there are presidential characters getting weed downstairs at the presidential dispensary.
That's awesome.
So I like to make games like that. My next level of games will probably be educational games.
Yeah.
And then I will probably do VR stuff. And at that level, I really want to help do art therapy.
Yeah.
And help people deal with trauma by kind of dealing with the trauma in a VR setting. Without actually having to confront it, but still being able to confront it and work through it.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of 3 steps where I'm going. And our other step is I've been trying to reach out to, I want to start putting hackathon centers in urban areas like Compton, Detroit, Baltimore, to teach those kids how to hack, how to code, because they don't always have the environments to do so.
Yeah.
It was really crazy that when this whole pandemic thing was coming along, people were camped out in front of Burger King because they just didn't have any Wi-Fi.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
And it's like, wow, these kids need to have it. But once you give it to them, they do amazing things. They do really amazing things. So I just want to empower kids in those areas that don't get a chance to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting too, because I think that once they have the realization of how simple it is and the things that they can change, they're like, oh, well, I can do this and I can do this. And the first day of distance learning, our 10-year-old was like going into the code and changing his background and changing his cursor and changing his, on his little, school issued laptop, that once they have a general understanding of what they're doing, that it's just like fire. Like they can go anywhere with it.
Like I said, my son Onyx, we were sitting there watching TV and all of a sudden the channel started changing. I'm like, what's going on here? Who's changing?
Yeah.
He's upstairs changing channels. I was like, you can get to my fire. You can get to any fire. He can get to any fire stick in the house, any IP. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right.
dude,
Right.
how do you do that?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's how we felt when our now 20-year-old was like 10, 11, 12, that we were like, we just need to stay out of your way, because the things that you can figure out, we can't even stay ahead of. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I never put it that way. Because we've talked about that. With raising kids, a certain point that we come to, we realize for this part of my job is parenting. They've anything that I've said that they're going to listen to, they've listened to. Once they become teenagers, I'm not going to be able to scold them or debate them, or that time is done. But that's
No.
We've never put it that way, where it's we definitely came to a point with the kids where it's our time to just kind of stay out of the way, be there when they need us.
What's that saying? Your kid knows your opinion on everything in its totality by the time they're 12.
Yeah.
And after that, you just need to listen.
Yeah.
Your time for talking has ended.
Yeah.
Nah.
Just listen.
The main thing I do with my kids is I just tell them, my main thing with me and them is just don't lie.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I know you're going to act a fool. I
Right.
acted a fool.
Right.
We are going to make mistakes.
You're
Yep.
going to be an idiot because that's your job.
Yeah. You know, I was an idiot, but just let me know what you
Yeah.
did.
Yep.
I'll stand behind you.
Yeah.
You know, it might have been a fool thing, and I'll tell you that was a fool thing.
Yep.
But just don't lie to me, because that's the relationship that I want to have with you guys.
Yeah.
So-
That's totally like our mentality with our kids too. Where we're like, just tell me what you're doing, where you are, just be straight with me, and I won't freak out on you. Like that's kind of I think that to cultivate that dynamic where your kids aren't lying to you, it means you just don't freak out. Like you can't freak out. Like we had one that had a Jell-O shot party in our backyard one time, and just don't freak out.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
I think if you're able to be like, okay, you did this, well, let's figure it out, and not super emotional, then they're more likely to
Yeah.
tell. But I want to get back to the game and your app. So what is that? I'm curious what that process looks like for you. It's like that game, the DJ game, when you had the idea for it, do you have a team of people that you're working with? Is that 100% you? Like, what does that look like?
Looks like me getting up in the morning at 2:00.
Yeah.
Trying to get something done. And trying to pull my friends in. 'Cause it was really my concept, my idea. I realized at some point I didn't have money like these guys to go out and hire anyone. So I did my best to learn what I could to put something together. And after that, I got some investors to kind of believe in me.
Yeah.
And they gave me a little money for the proof of concept, and we were kind of off to the races.
Yeah.
So like right now, I wanted to have people work with me, but it's hard to get people to work with you. Either they don't believe in your idea, and other people, they just got kids to feed. So they don't have time to noodle around with my ideas and stuff like that, and I totally get that. So I knew that the first round I had to do it myself, and then they'll buy into it, which is kind of what it is. It's like no one's
Like blazing the trail.
Yeah, no one believes you do it till you do it. And he did. Yeah, I told you I was going to do it. Because it was real funny. Like the main character, Mike Clark, he's Agent X. Because he came to me with this last year, and I was like, dude, if you're Agent X, we should make you into like a superhero DJ, and you travel all over the world, like solving crimes and stuff, and then you DJ at night. He was like, oh yeah, cool, that'll work. And then he didn't think I was going to come up with it, and then I came up, well, here's your character. And he was like, wow, that's a 3D character. How did you do that? And I was like, that's just what I do.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can get some money behind it. And then I started talking to people in the real game industry. And it was this whole tidal wave of the game has to, people have to like the game, and you have to pick up people that support the game. You have to have fans behind the game, like Diablo or Mario.
Right.
Those are cultures. And you have to have the culture, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, I get your point of view that like Pokemon, you have to have the culture, such and such, we have to have the culture. What you do not understand that in my mind, techno music has a culture.
Yeah.
That doesn't know that it needs games yet. It's kind of like, it was this old joke that I remember, salesman goes over to, Australia, and his boss says, how are you going to do? He says, I don't know. They don't wear shoes here. And then the other salesman goes in there and he says, how are you going to do? He said, dude, I'm going to do great. Nobody wears shoes here. And you just have to go in that way. That is what has always gotten me to the other side of whatever I've been doing. So
I love that.
If I believe it can happen, it's going to happen. And I'm going to drag you into space with me,
So you had the idea, and then you did all like the initial illustrations. Could you kind of like storyboard it, or like what does that process look like? Like once you had the idea and you're like, okay, we need to start fleshing this out.
The first concept was me writing it out. The next concept was me storyboarding it out, and putting kind of music to it. And then from there, I wanted to stylize the game, but I took a game engine and kind of stylized around the engine, so to speak. So like if I can get like a GTA engine, I can get a GTA engine and then do Detroit. So I did a whole Detroit map. I just did a whole architected Detroit downtown.
That's cool.
All the buildings and stuff like that. And then I put them in there. And then I took the engine for them to be able to fight in Detroit.
Yeah.
So I can do that. I figured out how to do that. Although I haven't been,
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been to game school or anything at all.
Yeah.
I'm taking my first class now,
That's
which is
crazy.
really it's really crazy. Like, oh no, but I was supposed to be doing. But
That's kind of how I learned photography too. That I was like, oh, that's how you're actually supposed to do this thing that I jimmy rigged together.
yeah, like photography, like this whole radiosity and lighting and ambiance, and I got to remember that when I'm hitting these models.
Yeah.
Like, there's a soft light, hard
Yep.
light. Like, dude, I don't know all of this, but those, if you want to be the level of Walt Disney, you have to pay attention to those things. 'Cause
Right.
I said I wanted to be the Black Walt Disney.
That's cool.
I wanted to be able to take stories and bring them to life, to take stories from people from my culture and be able to translate them and to tell their stories and being able for them to love who they are.
Yeah.
That's really what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There's been so much negative content about people of color, and they need to learn how to be human. You know, I don't understand why GTA does so well. I mean, I do, because we live it.
Right.
I've lived it, so I know where it came from.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be there, and I think that if we emulate differently, then things will be different. You know,
love
it's
that.
like, does art become life or does life become art?
Yeah.
And art has to be, well, right now, life has to become art, because that's the way it is. People are now mimicking what they see.
Yeah.
So we've got to change what they see in order to have them have better ideas of themselves, concepts of themselves. So, like, I've got a character named Venus Moon. Venus Moon is a multicultural little girl. She's just hitting puberty now, and she's in the inner city, and she has to go through all of these things, such as, you know, who's bullying, people trying to take advantage of her,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Just kids who talk differently because she's of a different race. Those things still have to be addressed for the kids. They don't always have someone around to help them address those.
Yeah.
So if you can do it in a game, then that at least they have some context of the right way to do it. Because I know me growing up, I didn't have the right approach to sex. I'm just saying, you know. So that made a difference in how I approach women.
Right.
But I had to since learn, you know, you don't say, hey, you know. But they do that now, and
Yeah.
women respond because now they're trained to respond that way.
Yeah.
When it should be, hey, young lady, how you doing? I like,
Yeah.
you know, such and such. Can you come out? None. You know, I have a job. That's gone.
Yeah.
But if you show that in games, if you show the right way to resolve stuff,
Yeah.
I think that plays out well, especially when you get to the RPG mode where you've got these people running around doing these game spaces.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily right now they're doing this whole shoot thing, but now you're getting to where they have to encounter people
Yeah.
and they have to take them down psychologically, like Joker in the Batman game.
Yeah.
That's a very intense game, but you have to outthink the Joker and how he does stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to think like a psychopath. But just games like that take you down those types of rabbit holes.
Yeah.
The kids aren't seeing it now. Well, they're kind of seeing it. When you get to VR, you're going to see it even more. Like, you've got all these. There's a whole culture now who are like paraplegic, but they're in VR world.
Right.
And that's where they live. That they go down. That's where they live. They can actually purchase. So they've taken on that whole persona.
Yeah.
But in that persona, they've also changed who they are.
Yeah.
Which is the weirdest thing to me as far as VR and computers is concerned.
Yeah.
People's personas, who they are online, what is real, what they show, and what can be changed. I think that's the biggest thing for me about computers. It's not about science or whatever. It's how it changes people.
Yeah. Well, it's like an amazing new artistic medium, like that didn't exist, and I think what you're doing is amazing too, because it's kind of like we were talking about with the music industry changing distribution, changing distribution from Diablo and, all these huge companies that were generating income for themselves and bringing it down to a much more micro level. It's amazing. It's so cool.
They have to.
Yep.
I remember when George Clinton got his catalog back.
Yeah.
And he cried.
Yeah.
He cried. As I remember, he sold it, and he didn't have it for 25 years.
Wow.
It's like they've been playing Flashlight every day, and you have not been getting paid off of it, dude.
It's just wrong.
Whew, they wrong. I mean, that's why I got out of the music industry, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Is because once I saw, I wrote a song. I did a remix of a song for Stevie Wonder, and it got on Northern. You remember Northern Exposure?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it got on Northern Exposure.
show.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, cool. I got to start.
Yeah. You're like, I've arrived.
Yeah. Got my check. It was $4,000.
Wow.
So what the heck happened here?
Where did this go?
They took like 70% of my earnings.
Yeah.
I was like, no. I'm in the wrong business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting time to be alive, because I think we're on the cusp of like a major renaissance, just in across the board, like with everything that I think that, and I think that what happened, we talked about the GameStop stuff this week. I think that that's like an indicator of the floodgates that I think are about to open, and, with the music industry and the entertainment industry and just I'm so excited.
They're finally getting control over the law of numbers.
Yep.
Which is extremely scary.
Yep.
Because now you can like manipulate insurance companies.
Yeah.
Which is super scary for these guys.
I'm sure.
And they don't even understand how it happens, but these kids do.
Yep.
That's why it was like, hey, let's all buy up. And it was a bunch of gamers that
Yeah,
did it.
It was. You bet it was.
Let's go buy this up and drive up the price.
Yeah.
Higher than freaking Tesla.
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, they're getting a lot smarter. They're learning new things. I like it.
I do too.
I like the whole disruptive thing.
Yeah.
And the part I love is just giving people the power of distributing their content or their art, whatever it is, and being able, by controlling the distribution, to have more control over the compensation. Like I love comedy and comedians. I follow a ton of comedians, and to see like what they've done with podcasting and from what podcasting has done for so many of them with their specials, or where so many of them are saying today, like the guys that are, the top comedians today have been around for a little while. When they were coming up, like there was just one path. Like you got on the Tonight Show, and then if you got on the Tonight Show, hopefully you got a TV show or you got a development deal, right? Like that was the path. But now it's like none of them want to go on the Tonight Show, and none of them want to do TV shows because they're like, I can do a cooking show at my house with my buddy who's a comedian who has 1 million followers on YouTube, and we can just do a YouTube show together and have 100% control over it, do it how we want and when we want, and
keep all the profits instead
of
70% of it going to somebody else when it's your creative blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into it.
And I love that because like I have these comedians that I like and I follow, and I can listen to their podcast, or I can watch their vlog, and I can you get such a a much more clearer picture on window into who they are and
Mm-hmm.
their personal lives, and you just feel so much more connected than a minute 30-second interview
On
on the
stage.
Tonight Show, which
Yeah.
they got the questions beforehand, and that's all they
It's
know
so
what story they're going
canned.
to tell. And it's so can, but I that aspect of it I love, and just to give them control just puts out so much better content.
Well,
think
and
it
it's
opens
more
up the door to
equitable. It's
creativity.
the way that things have worked from the stock market to the music industry to comedy to everything. It's just it hasn't been equitable for the people doing the creating. So
Oh, for sure.
I'm excited
Yeah.
to see where we go.
So
from here.
with your games, so they can get it now. Do you have that one, or do you have multiple games on?
You
right
can
now.
get that one game on Play Store or on Apple Store, so it's available. Just look up Detroit Techno DJs,
Yep.
and it should be available. And then we will have another version out in April with a whole new set of characters and a
nice.
whole new set of DJs.
New
So
DJs.
fun.
Mhm.
So you see it possibly putting out, just continuing to put
Yeah,
out
what
new
I'm
ones?
going to do, it's going to be like a quarterly comic book kind of thing.
Nice.
So at the beginning, I'm going to have the intro of them talking and getting ready to get into it, and then they'll get into the game. And then what I'm trying to do, if I can get my animation stuff right, is I'm going to bring those animated characters into a talk show where they talk to
Oh,
each
that's
other
awesome.
Yeah,
as,
love that.
as hero DJs.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm trying to go, so we get to that whole streaming level.
Yeah.
And then I want them as animated characters. You remember Space Ghost,
Mhm.
where he would interview people?
Yeah.
I want them to interview
That's
music
awesome.
music people in VR.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's where the next thing is going, VR talk shows.
Yeah.
Well, so much respect, because our main thing we do is Real Estate Magazine, and 3 years ago wanted to have a digital aspect of the magazine. We print it and send it out to real estate agents, but gosh, it's going on probably 4 years ago now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's more than 3
I've
years.
been saying
friend.
it was 3 years ago for
Yeah,
a
you
year,
have.
so I guess I'm at 4.
Wow.
But we wanted a digital aspect to it, and so it was like, okay, what apps are out there that I can take this monthly magazine, and there just really wasn't anything, and especially what we wanted to do. Nothing that was doing it really well. So then I'm like, okay, well, looking at bigger companies, just trying to find what my options were, and then I'm like, well, I guess there's really nothing that does what I want to do at the time. So what if I hire a developer and go that route and make it myself? And I had never done anything like that, but I'm just creative enough to think that I can do something, and so I always jump in. So I barely knew how to use Photoshop, but okay, so Adobe has that XD where you can create so I got XD, and like, okay, what is this app going to do? And because we wanted that magazine to be digital, look at past issues, have video on it, and there was about 6 or 7 main features that I wanted it to do, because it was to be interactive for the subscribers. I wanted to have messaging system. You can share the articles to social media, and so I thought it was going to take me
Yeah,
a
you were looking
month.
at a 6-month start to finish.
I thought we were going to have it done in 6 months,
Yeah.
but it took me 6 months to basically
lay it out.
lay out every screen and every option and figure all that. I'd never done anything like that.
Wow.
And then 7 months later, I'm just a couple hours a night. I'll be done in a month, like 3 weeks. So like
No,
8
dude.
months later, I had
It's a rabbit hole.
I had hundreds
It's
of
a rabbit
screens in
hole.
my XD. It was like 178, because I just went into it thinking it was going to be so simple. But every time I created one, I'm like, okay, but what's going to happen after this
Yeah.
and after
what
that?
happens when you
And
click
then-
on this on this page?
So
what happens
please,
if you click on this on
please,
this page?
please call my wife. Please tell her your husband loves you. He's just in a rabbit hole right now. He needs to figure out something. So I'm in the garage where is this? I'm trying to figure out how to do the game where one is going forward in time, where another character is going backward in time.
Yeah. Well, and what
The
you did
number
is
of
so-
rabbit holes there,
yeah.
is
I
insurmountable.
barely scratched the surface to what you did. So, but it took, I think it was like 8 months,
hats
and then
off.
finally I hired a developer, and we kind of partnered together, and he built it. But I did feel good at what the first conversations that I had them, and I shared everything with him. Because first we had the phone call, and I told him everything I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I shared all the files with him and showed it to him, and he was like, oh, wow. He's like, you have it, like, it's done. Like I just need to basically write the code. Like I
Right.
figured
Yep.
everything
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
So he went into it expecting
Write
like
the associations.
yeah, because I didn't know all the terminology. So I'm sure that first phone call, he's like, "Oh man, I'm working with this guy, and this is going to be a mess." So, but like so much respect because I think by the time he was done with it, we tested it. It was like 2 years. The time we were completely
Whoa.
done.
That's crazy.
But we use it for our magazine, and then about 75 other publishers.
Yeah.
We sold it as a subscription base for publishers to use it for their magazines. So,
You know what I did? Do you remember Corel Draw?
Yep.
Way back in the day. They had a product called Database Publisher.
Okay.
You remember that?
No.
You could take the images that you created in Corel Draw and put them with the things you wrote in Corel Write. Okay.
Okay.
And you could make them into files, put them together by
Yeah.
designating areas on the page.
Yeah.
I took that app and instead of making .pubs, I did a .htmls.
Yeah.
And it was the first CMS engine for Expedia.
Wow.
Wow.
And yeah, Expedia.com I just felt so stupid. It's like, I did that? Where's my money?
Yeah.
Oh.
But
Wow.
yeah, you come up with good ideas and you just put them together.
Yeah.
Power through.
Yeah, use case process. What happens if then? That's what I like to do. It's not the game thing. It's the if then so things that I like to go down.
Yeah, me too.
And that's why I like doing games so much.
Yeah.
So, but no, I'm having fun. It allows me to stay home with my wife
Yeah.
and stay home with the kids and do as much as I can. So it's been working out for us.
Yeah. So do you right now talking about with the characters and taking that to the next stage? Do you have any social media elements of that yet or of the game?
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with a good mixture for that. Right now, because they're DJs, I can have them do mixes.
Yeah.
And then I can have the mixes done on top of some snippets from the game and then snippets from other things that they're doing. So that's kind of what I'm doing now is getting their stuff together for them to do weekly mixes and then put on YouTube and then start putting all their techno, all their stuff on one channel on YouTube and kind of growing it from there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I have... one of my friends is a Marvel illustrator.
Oh, cool.
And he has all these other characters that he hasn't given to Marvel. So we're talking about doing a whole new metaverse with all these new characters
That's
and
cool.
all their new stuff.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is it's like I'm gonna have my own metaverse in like the next 6 months.
Yeah.
My premise is it's going to be called Planet Funk.
That's
So
awesome.
watch out for Planet Funk. And it's going to have like the whole narration is going to be like George Clinton is going to be the Godfather.
That's awesome.
And you're going to be able to go to these different parts of the city that have different types of music.
That's cool.
And you're able to meet those DJs. There will also be other fight scenes where you battle them against their music.
Yeah.
And you can do it in a streaming format. In the top, like you can go to the rap part. If people vote on your rap versus someone else's rap,
That's cool.
whoever gets the top rap, they become the top rap person in that setting. And then we'll do a live streaming for them in that particular setting.
Yeah.
So I want to make this whole music metaverse similar to like kids are doing the whole other gaming space, but I want to do it for a music space because I think at the end of the day there'll be a bigger draw to music people and people doing doing music context as opposed to shooting people all the damn time.
Yeah. And like we were talking about at the beginning, there's I think a lot of opportunity to cross pollinate, continue to do that as you continue down that path.
Yeah, it's crazy because I'll get tracks from Christian people, I'll get tracks from jazz people, and hey, let's do this mix. So I'll take their tracks, mix it to mine, put the track out there, and the people say, hey, he likes that track. Okay, well, it's 100 microchips. Well, he helped me with this, so he gets 50 and I get 50.
Yeah.
And everybody gets paid.
Yeah.
From and it's a good echo sphere for musicians. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it does.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Well, thanks so much for coming in, man. I could probably keep talking, going on and on, but it's excited to see the game develop, and I'm glad we finally got to meet in person.
Thank
you, man.
Going
I
back and
appreciate
forth
it.
on social
Great
media.
to meet you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Like your place. What up, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Frankie Goes to Hollywood. That was one of my favorites.
All right. I'm going to have you just put